Hey, welcome to the special two-part series of Akrinos Access, where I, Eric Matei, am joined by Dr. Ryan Gustus as we're exploring the world and the process of adding a second location. So, Dr. Gustus, thank you so much for joining us here on Akrinos Access and sharing a bit about your journey to where you are now, having added a second location to your already remarkable practice in Bluffton, Indiana. And this is in addition to your tech startup, LensQuote, and all of that. So I know we've got a lot to get to. So here in episode 1, we're going to touch on the vision and creating the plan. So Dr. Gustus, thank you so much for joining.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm coming to you from the void in my basement after a child's event. So apologies for no, interesting background to anyone watching.
The void. Yeah, but it's within the void that the best of ideas are kind of spawned.
That's right. Nothing to distract.
So on that note, let's start then. If we're talking about ideas, spawning good ideas, where did all this come from? Okay, because I've known you for a while, and I've known you again. You've had this thriving practice. I know you have this awesome tech startup in LensQuote. So let's start with just peeling back. Talk about your vision behind adding a second location.
Yeah, I'll say it's a bit of a combined vision. So the way it started I'll go back to even kind of my default setting. So default setting, I love to build things. I love processes, and I'm not quite 40 yet and getting real close, but my overall passion and driving force here is to help and build and do all these things. So naturally, if you present me with an opportunity, no matter almost what it is, I'm pretty interested in hearing more about it and doing it. And so that's kind of my default setting. And I have a great business partner too. So it's my practice partner that I bought in with 12 years ago into eye care, to my first practice. So we're 50-50 there. And it's been a bit of his vision too. In fact, he lives pretty close to the community that we opened the second location in. And I would say for the second location, kind of more instrumental than me, certainly, on getting a lot of the details and finding the opportunities in that. But yeah, that was kind of the vision, was to say, look, we're going to be out on the lookout for opportunities. We had targeted this community for a little while because it's kind of like an up and coming community, smaller, unique in a few things. Maybe we can get to that in a little bit. And when we found an opportunity, we kind of pounced. And then 2-3 years later, then we had a practice. So yeah.
2-3 years. Wow. Okay. Yeah. So there's been some process to it, but I guess that being said, though, it all started with that shared vision, right? So with your same partner, you had that aligned vision, something you all both wanted to do, and I think perhaps an important takeaway for viewers on that front is to make it known. Don't just keep these secrets. Throw them out there. Engage other people. My wife likes to say, "Will it to the universe." So I suppose you all willed it to the universe a number of years back, and it came full circle. Okay, so that being said, well, it sounds to me like this was a vision that you all had for some time. When did you know the time was right?
Yeah, so actually that's a good, because I was about to say there were some other pressures too, a little bit. And so I'll say on the pressure side that also led us to maybe look is that within our current practice, so our setting is definitely more rural, right? It's a town of 10,000. We're out in a county. We pull from 5 different counties really that even come into our practice. So it's not, it's not remote, but it's definitely not big city. We're about 40 minutes south of what's considered a bigger city in Indiana. And so with that, we're really, at capacity, even with 6 exam lanes in our current office. And so, it's been busy. And so one way to grow would be, okay, well, we could try adding on to this current building, which we own, but there's not a lot of room for that, frankly, with the lot and the building as it is. So what are other ways that you could do it? Well, you could try finding a new building in the current community, or not, this other, our second location is about 15 miles away, overlapping some with our territory of this practice. So it was a little bit of saying, look, we're already at capacity, we could grow more. Well, what about adding square footage? It doesn't have to be in the same building, it can be in a separate building. So that was part of then the pressure that then got us rolling to find this. So then, the opportunity was really looking, just keeping, networking. I don't know if I can say to anyone out there, networking is really good, helps with finding opportunities. And frankly, it was someone in this community that had a store that was looking to sell she closed her store and wanted to sell the building. It was a perfect building in a perfect spot. And we had the funding then to go ahead and buy the building. And so that's where it started, was at least we had a vision. We knew that we could and needed to expand. So we bought a building. And then a couple years later, between COVID, it was in a floodplain. So we had to remove it from a floodplain, correctly and doing all those things. That's where the eventuality was.
Sure. Yes. Yes. Okay. So it started with the vision. The vision was there, and you knew it was the right time when you guys hit capacity in this. My gosh, capacity 6 lanes. Mm-hmm. That's some serious volume, dude. And full scope. Yeah. Well, what's the scope that you guys do?
Yeah, we're all disease residency trained. So we all did residencies in ocular disease.
Heck
and
yeah.
So that's a little bit of that's actually, I would say the majority of our practice is actually more of that Medicare, age range, frankly. Sure. Yeah. Sure. So a lot of glaucoma, a lot of macular degeneration, a lot of dry eye. Mm-hmm.
So on that note, you knew in adding that second location, you're maintaining that same model. Okay. So
a little sorta. So that was also the other intrigue of this other location. Where it's at is a very unique, it's hard to come up with the blueprint of this, but it's a very small town, about 2,000 outside of the bigger city, and about, 15 miles away from anything else. But it's an area where a lot of really great land has been that people have built. The downtown has been turned into, over the last 15 years, due to some local benefactors, into this like almost a boutique experience where people specifically travel there to shop and do, festivals and activities and have their wedding there and all these other things. And so that was part of the unique thing of this location. Is it also, we could practice very similarly and we offer those same services. However, like with this building, we split off and we have an optical and the, clinical area essentially, where you could easily walk in, shop, buy on the spot kind of thing. So it also added a little interesting, different flavor than that, I don't know. It's a new challenge, right? It's something that's different for sure.
Absolutely. And 2 other things in that vein. One being diversifying your business, which is really interesting, right? And it sounds to me like this is like now, if we now look at the portfolio that is your practice, cool. We now have a bit more variety in those revenue streams, right? Yep. I assume new location is going to have more direct pay revenue than does established Medicare, geriatric, medical. So exactly. that then, and I know we've had and this is another topic for another time. Actually, perhaps a topic later date and time about LensQuote and the role of direct pay revenue streams to a practice. But I think we both know, if 90% of the revenue is tied to managed care, then when managed care reduces reimbursements by even a fraction of a percent, that's impacting 90% of your revenue stream of your practice. So I like hearing that the diversification, you're getting a bit more direct pay. Mm-hmm. Something else though, I think is important for viewers to take away is understanding the market, right? So you're creating in this community, this boutique destination lifestyle community that you're in with the second location. you're not trying to cram the square peg into the round hole. You're giving that community what it needs. And hey, in that other more rural, I assume that what you're providing that community more suits the needs of the community. So, so really incredible stuff. Okay, so it started with a vision. You knew the time was right. It was shared vision between you and your partner. You knew the time was right when you all hit capacity. You discover, you find a building. That's right. You find a building. How long between finding the building and opening?
We just opened in July, so it was pretty much, I mean, about 3 years. I believe, if I'm really being honest, I think close to 3 years between buying the building and then actually getting the practice in there.
Sure, and, gotcha. Why 3 years?
Yeah,
I mean,
it was
certain cold starts in less than 12 months at times.
Oh yeah, yeah.
3 years.
I'm not recommending 3 years necessarily. Part of it was a little bit of instead of I would say having and perhaps you can speak to the clients that you work with, right? Have a really good idea, vision, everything else planned out, and then find that location and put it in that location. We were kind of like, all right, we know we want something here. Oh, we found a building, great. So I would say that the building probably was on the early edge of the plans for the expansion and the vision.
Gotcha.
The building was right there ready, and it was a good deal.
Sure.
I was like, all right, bingo. Now we'll start our process of figuring it out. So I would say that. And then to say nothing force us is for anyone that's say buying it or adding on to an existing structure, because we bought a building, we also added on to it. And it happened to be in what's called a federal floodplain, and there's but it could be taken out of the federal floodplain with the right certifications and these things. And so there were interesting stories where where one has to wait for the other, has to wait for the other. We had 2 gas lines break because it was an old building and they hadn't properly marked them.
Oh my god!
Or they were mystery gas lines that could have done away with the whole neighborhood, but we were kind of lucky that we found them for everybody. But we found them for everybody because they broke them as they were putting on this new thing. The floodplain, we had a scenario where this guy promised us he was coming out the next day to check his box so that these people could do their thing. He doesn't show up. We call, oh, Steve's on vacation for 3 weeks now. What? Like, how did?
Hang up.
Steve didn't mention that,
That's happened. Yeah, as a matter, and that's the thing is that 3 weeks here, 2 weeks there, a month here, 1 week there. Before you know it, like the project just takes a really long time.
Quickly adds up. Plus COVID delays of kind of put things on pause when we didn't know what the world was, and then coming out of that, getting all the right contractors at the right times and right price. So it was, I will say, the luxury of having a very well-established practice, having a partner in the vision that while there were plenty of pressures to go ahead and get that up and going, there wasn't the pressure of like it has to happen or else kind of thing. It was kind of a luxury to really be very, very deliberate on every decision that we made as we built the building and added the features and chose the floorboards, things like that. It really it took the speed up. Now, was there an opportunity cost to that? Yes. So I'm not going to argue against that. There was. So that is that's a real thing to consider. But
absolutely,
as part of it,
yeah. What's in the tech world? What do you call it? The burn rate? Right.
Oh yeah. The burn rate was really high for a while, and now we're back in the green.
So I like you dropped a word there that I want to circle back to as we're going to maybe now transition into a little bit of the development of this project, right?
Sure.
Akrinos Location. And you said deliberate. You and your partner wanted to be deliberate about this new venture. So share with us a bit about developing this as far as some of the technicalities, and maybe we'll start first with organizational structure, right? Is it a new business entity, or are you just something else under your established business? Maybe you speak a little bit about financing, and then leveraging relationships you already had in the industry to kind of make this thing come to fruition. So talk about the deliberate development of this thing.
Yeah, I can do that. Well, I'll go back to like a statement on partnership that if and again, depending on who you are as the audience member of, finding a partner can be, well, let's put it this way. I've seen posts on Facebook and various entities that are like, 100% no partner, 100% yes partner. And but I would say there's probably more people that are a little concerned about working with others, and because it's like a marriage, right? It's not easy. I kind of have two marriages, technically speaking, and they're usually pretty both good at the same time. So it works out. But I mean that's in of itself. So finding someone that has complementary talents is a wonderful thing. And so I would say one part of my partner is he's very deliberate, very detail oriented, and but doesn't miss a thing, right? So there's while sometimes there's the opportunity cost in taking, quote unquote, too long to do something, there's also an opportunity cost, or an opportunity cost isn't the right thing, but essentially like a waste to doing something incorrect and going, crap, okay, we just wasted 20K in that direction. And so maybe in that sense, we balanced it out, the opportunity with waste with just being very deliberate. So the deliberacy in the plan that was really then kind of building it from the ground up of saying, okay, we found someone to essentially do the blueprints, which had worked with us in our previous office, right, or our first office, to lay out the structure of looking at the kind of demographics of the area and knowing, we had a good idea of what that practice would probably look like from again, not looking to totally cookie cutter it, plenty that you can bring along from a process perspective, but have the feel be a little different, right? So, and kind of like enjoy the challenge in solving that, right? So, having a good idea what it looks like, build out the plans, start to create a budget, and really then going to the bank, which again, helpful to have already something established, is that it's pretty easy to leverage those bank relationships to then get the money necessary to then go ahead and build what you want, right? So that made it, exquisitely easy, at least from that perspective, to find the funding and get it up and going. And then, I would say from the other perspective is like my partner was, well, and still is, if I'm saying it right, the Chamber of Commerce like president of this community already. So if you could ever, maybe again, this is someone, maybe I'm speaking to you as someone who's listening that's like, okay, I'm wanting to go into this community. Yeah, get there first and then open a practice if you can. Because wow, I mean, those relationships that he had built and all the help that he had done and doing our empty building was getting used. It was the farmers market storage area at one point. And we hosted, and they have all these festivals there, and we hosted like a quilt show, which is, I hope someone from the coast is listening and is like, quilt show? What the hell are you talking about?
What is that?
Yeah, what is a quilt? Yes, there are people that are very into quilts. We had a quilt show in there. We had, we were the kind of like a hub. They have an old car like festival of all these cool cars that come, and ours was like the Porsche lot that
that's so
go
cool.
inside, get refreshed. So while we had this building and there wasn't a practice in it, it got used within the community and let us for literally about a year market the opening that eventually kind of became the joke, like a tongue in cheek of like, so when are you guys opening?
Yeah, right. Okay, I love it.
You've been involved in the community. You've done this, you've done that. We were having quilt shows and car shows and everything else. And then, but there's going to be a practice in here, right? And yes, it's coming. It's coming right there. We got a sign out there. And so that I would say that helped tremendously, because I would say without, yes, it's on the upward, gotta grow more path, but it's been a pleasant surprise of plans of, okay, what's our real volume going to look like, and try to be very reasonable with it. And then what the actual response so far has been a nice discrepancy towards the better. Like, oh, wow, we're getting more volume than we kind of projected at this point. And I think a lot of that is what did it for us.
Yeah. you hit on something that I'm right there with you, Dr. Gustus. I believe is so important, right? You say community, and community involvement. Like if we were to like shift into, and I think maybe in the next episode we're talking about like, okay, now that you have these 2 locations, the metrics, the KPIs, managing the business, growing the business strategically, what have you. That'll be our next in this 2-part series. By the way, again, viewers, right? This is one of two about adding the location. But you mentioned something that again, I just think is so important through this development process, and that is the impact of community. Because here's the deal. When you're in practice, you're looking for ways to grow and develop your practice, right? Hey, we want to find ways to sustain growth and sustain the culture of our practice. That's really what everyone's looking for, right? So if you think about it, at the end of the day, it all boils down to serving the patient. And the patient journey actually starts on the community level, right? That patient journey starts on the community level. So I really love, and I think it's a really nice way to kind of wrap up this first conversation, right? It started with the vision. You develop the plan, or you create the plan, and then you're developing and bringing this thing to launch. But through that process, you were talking about relationships. Through that process, you were talking about being deliberate and intentional with the decisions that are being made. And through that process, you were talking about the importance of getting involved in the community and positioning your brand from its infancy to be a presence in the community.
Pre-open.
So, dude, pre-open. Yeah, right. I know. So we haven't even gotten to opening yet. That'll be in the next episode 2, where we will talk about what it was like launching. And by the way, maybe in that next episode, we'll get into talking about even stuff like staffing and really building out some facets of the practice. We'll talk about launch, and then also what it's like from your perspective in now kind of steering these 2 ships. So, sure. Dr. Ryan Gustus, man, this was awesome way to start this conversation. A lot of great content. And I'm supposed to wrap this up for viewers that would like to connect with you and pick your brain more about this process. How can they connect with you?
Oh, sure. Yeah, hit me up. My company email is ryan@lensquote.com. So if you reach out on there, you won't get lost in my, other emails.
Yes.
That'd be a better
Fantastic.
String. Yeah.
Awesome. And hey, let's also remember we need to do another one of these about LensQuote, later date, later time. So again, Dr. Ryan Gustus, thank you so much for joining us here on Akrinos Access. Viewers, please join us for episode 2 here, coming right around the bend. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, follow us on the socials, and visit akrinos.com frequently for lots of great content like this. Dr. Gustus, we'll talk next time.
Thank you.